Welcome to Two Tops and Friends. Grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and let's dive into another episode of Two Tops and Friends.
Welcome back to Two Taps and Friends. This is your host, Danny Rosenberg here. Today I brought my esteemed colleague, Lloyd Goldberg, back on to talk about the Israel-Palestinian situation that's been going on. Obviously, war is still raging on in Gaza. We wanted to take time and keep addressing. I told you we're going to be coming back and talking about this because, you know, in my viewpoint, there needs to be, this perspective needs to be put out there, because what we're seeing on the internet and what you're seeing on TikTok and these videos that you're seeing, there's a lot of propaganda. And look, the other side would say we're putting out propaganda, but we're literally trying to find facts. We're searching both sides, and we're trying to counter both arguments. Welcome back, Lloyd, first of all.
Thank you.
Always great
to be
see
here.
you.
Appreciate that.
And listen, so I want to bring up, if we're going to start off, I want to take some time. We're going to, you know, there's a lot of comments being put on. I mean, a lot of hate has been put on. The comments that come on, I would say 99% of them are hate comments, and literally some of the most despicable things. At first, my instinct was like, let's take some of this down, you know, but then I was like, you know what, leave it up for what it is, because it was anti-Semitism, and that's what I believe is at the core of all this. And we've talked that, you know, the obsession with this conflict that people are seeing, and there's a Ukraine-Russia war going on. There's Sudan going on. There's so much stuff. The India-Pakistan situation. How much coverage did that get? Like what, a hiccup?
Almost
you know,
none.
like, and it's the amount of deaths. But there's so many deaths in Yemen and all these places. If you're obsessed with this, the obsession comes from the obsession with the Jews. And you could say, people can say it's not true. I just don't like the Israeli government. But if you pluck that onion a little bit, you'll get to that core, right?
I agree.
So just to read off a couple, I mean, here, let me see. This comes from a guy, I'm not even going to name the names, but it comes from a guy, let's just say Jock McClure, right? He puts a comment up. Israel sucks, exclamation point, right?
Right.
So we spent 45 minutes trying to debunk with facts, right? We're giving numbers. We're not making these numbers up, right?
Right,
Like
right.
You're doing research, I'm doing research. We're coming in here prepared,
Right.
highlighters, pens. This isn't us spatting propaganda, right?
Right, right.
Remember, Lloyd is an American citizen, Democrat for years, right?
whole life.
For his whole life, right?
right.
His whole family. Like, it's not an Israeli, right?
Nope.
And he's over here spatting facts, and has literally had to switch parties, or I don't even know if he switched parties, just kind of left in the middle, kind of like all of us. And this is the response. It's Israel sucks. Thank you so much, Jock McClure. I don't know how to respond to that. I disagree with you, right? You disagree.
That's
with
it.
that?
I
Okay.
I
We
disagree.
disagree with your statement, Jock McClure. Nadell. All right. Free Palestine. Okay. Fine. Okay. Free
Yep.
Palestine. I could say, if you want to free Palestine, what I would suggest is that you don't bring in a radical government like Hamas. That's charter says that we're going to kill Jews, and every Jew and the stones will call out when Jews are behind them. You agree? Not really a good strategy to become a free country, right?
Right. And what does that mean, actually? So, you know, I think one of the biggest problems that we have in responding to these things is we try to respond with facts.
Right.
And we try to educate. But I think where we fail is we don't ask questions instead. So, for example, when someone says free Palestine, we fail to call them out and say, well, what does that mean to you? Right? So that's the biggest problem, is we just talk over each other because we're so intent on defending ourselves.
Right.
Right?
Palestine what? The mandate? The Palestine, the entire region that was divided into Jordan? What are we talking here?
And what do they mean by free it?
Yeah, what does that
So-
mean? Judenreich? Is that, you want to get rid of Jews? Is that what you mean? Like,
Right. So, and that is what it means. Okay. So let's
Right.
not pull punches. The slogan, Free Palestine, the slogan From the River to the Sea, and then of course the third one is, you know, globalize the Intifada, and we'll talk about that's something different. That's more of a mechanism by which we free Palestine.
Well, people don't know what Intifada was or meant, and we'll talk about that in a later episode.
Again, we fail in asking them to describe what those terms mean to them.
They're just, to a lot of people, like, Israel sucks. Okay, you're repeating slogans that you've heard without, and I venture to say you don't have much knowledge on this situation at all, right? You're repeating slogans, okay? Next person, Carl. The only question, this is what he writes, all right, is, quote, why are we allowing our government not to only not stop, but fund another genocide? Okay, that's the comment. All right, so literally you're just throwing a tag word. Again, they've utilized these words that were invented after the Jews were literally slaughtered. 6 million.
Right.
Some of you out there would deny that even, right?
Right, that's correct.
You're using that as a weapon against people that are severely traumatized people because of this, which is the most despicable thing that I think that you can do. And
Well, and let me interrupt there.
Sure.
If we're actually being honest and we're properly defining the term genocide,
Right,
the only
talk.
genocide that's occurred between these two people in the last 2.5 years has been the genocide that the Palestinian Arabs committed against the Jews on October 7th, 2023.
Right.
Why? Because their slaughter was specifically directed at, intended to destroy the Jews.
any Jew,
Exactly.
literally.
Every Jew.
Any person they, sorry to interrupt, but any person they walked into, that's indiscriminate. That's what genocide is. Let's just throw everyone in the frying pan, right?
because of who they are.
Right.
So that is the big difference. Again, if we break it down to an objective perspective, in order to be able to call what's happening in what the Israelis are doing in Gaza as a genocide, you would have to believe with objective facts that the Israelis are killing Palestinian citizens solely for the purpose of eliminating them.
Right.
And that is not what's happening. First of all, this isn't a rogue government, a band of, militias. This is a democratically elected, Western democracy that runs
A liberal
by the
democracy.
rule of law.
Right.
Okay? Checks and balances, just like the United States. So, their goal is twofold. One is to bring back the hostages that those Gazan Arabs stole on October 7th, and the other is to eliminate Hamas, which is an Islamic ethno-fascist group whose sole purpose for living is to destroy the Jews.
Yeah, and who implanted himself amongst civilians.
Exactly. And Israel's obligation to its citizens is to make sure that what happened on October 7th doesn't happen again. And Hamas has been very open about their aims. They have said publicly that they will, do another October 7th over and over as many times as they can until they destroy the state of Israel. That is their stated goal.
Right.
So, if you're an honest person, let me ask you, what should an independent nation, a sovereign government, a Western democracy do when your enemy, who is right next door to you, says, we're not going to stop doing what we did on October 7th until you're all dead?
Right.
What would what would be your advice to them?
Let's contrast it. The genocide, all right? Let's the definition of genocide. I'm just getting it off of Google, right?
Read it.
Deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group, okay? Now, let's just pull this apart. Israel is one of the most capable militaries on this planet, okay? If they wanted to destroy the entire group, it would be it would take one day, okay? They would literally fly their F-whatevers and drop and just literally carpet bomb everything until everybody's dead. They're not doing that. They're not doing that. They have their soldiers you see the background? In little nooks and crannies, because that's what it looks like. Walking in nooks and crannies, getting shot, getting snuck, getting blown up. These are these people's, the Israelis, this is their children. You have to understand, these are their children. Everyone gets drafted in Israel. These politicians, their kids are in the military or have been in the military or in reserves. They're risking their lives to try to weed out people that are entwined with zero respect for human life in children's rooms, in hospitals, in churches, with tunnels. They're risking their lives. That alone destroys your definition of genocide. Let's add more in. They're sending food trucks in. Who does that? What nation in the history of war has sent trucks and aid in and have done that and are demanded to do that by the country, but they were doing it on their own? And you have these people that have been at these crossings that are seeing these things, and you can find videos of this, right? And now they stopped food aid, or they stopped for like a couple of weeks, and the world went insane, and I don't even know they really stopped. They're back to doing it again. Why is that? How is that a genocide by any definition of the word? Right?
Not only that, the civilian to combatant ratio of casualties, unfortunate deaths, is almost 1-to-1, which is the lowest
In history.
in any urban warfare environment. Israel goes out of its way to avoid civilian casualties. Israel warns people to flee the area before it attacks. And it attacks based on very sound intelligence, and its aim and its purpose is to eliminate the terrorists and nobody else.
Right. I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that claim is even allowed to be said. It's so, and remember, like, I can understand if, this was a group, Hamas, that had military bases, right? And then there were civilian neighborhoods, okay? And then every once in a while, one of their soldiers, they're attacking in neighborhoods. They don't have military bases. Their bases are these people's homes. They're firing rockets from their homes. The entire nation of Israel is running in and out of bomb shelters daily. And sometimes people say, I think Doug Murray was talking about the dome, right?
Yep.
The Iron Dome.
Yep.
Like, somebody asked him, hey, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? An Israeli came up to him, and he was like, well, what kind of question is it? Of course it's a good thing. He's like, no, I don't think it's a good thing. He said, no, I think it's a bad thing.
What would be the argument?
Because it's a bad thing, because if these rockets were dropping, what would the world say with all these people getting killed? Because that's what would happen. There would literally be this amount of civilian death in Israel if Israel wasn't preparing and protecting itself.
Oh, I think that's naive. I think that we see exactly what would happen and what the response would be from the world community
That's the thing.
if that were happening. First, the media wouldn't cover it, and then those that
The narrative would switch.
No, the narrative would be exactly the same. If those bombs were falling on Israeli citizens, people would say, "Good, they deserve it."
Meaning that it would switch on the Jews. It wouldn't be about the bombs dropping. It would be about, well, why are we here? Why did this happen?
Right. It would be rationalized. That's what I'm saying. And yes,
Rationalized,
exactly right. That's exactly right. Like I said, the liberal media wouldn't, the legacy media wouldn't cover it, and if they did, they would invert it so that everybody watching, they would feed that animal, which is, well, the Jews deserve it. They shouldn't be there.
Right. Listen, the minute they don't have ground troops in there and they're just dropping massive bombs and taking everything out without any precaution, people don't understand the Israeli military protocol as well. If you ever study their protocol, speak to generals, you're going to say biased, they're Zionists, right? That's what they're going to say. There's no conversation to be had. The amount of checks that have to go through before a bomb is dropped, before engagement happens, it's unheard of. Leaflets. Who drops leaflets and warns the building that they're going to bomb them?
Right.
Minutes, like 30 minutes before? I don't remember what the number.
One of the reasons why this war has lasted so long is because, unlike no other, nation on the planet, Israel says to the Gazan population, okay, you all have to get up and move to the safe zone.
Right.
And
Safe zones.
Hamas
Genocide?
doesn't wear uniforms. They don't distinguish themselves in combat from actual soldiers, a war crime that nobody seems to care about because it's not Israel doing it, but they meld within the population. So when Israel says to the people of Gaza, okay, everybody go south, we're going to, attack now, Hamas just blends right in and goes with them. So that's why it's like whack-a-mole. It's almost impossible to eliminate them because the world community allows them to meld within the population. Nobody stands up and says, hey, that's not a good idea, because if you do that, then innocent civilians might get hurt. No. Nobody requires anything of Hamas. Only Israel. I wanted to touch on something you said, because I think this is an important point, something else people don't understand, and what you said about the military. In the United States, we have a voluntary military. There's no draft. There's no requirement that the spoiled little Americans have to go and fight for their country.
Right.
Something I think should be reconsidered. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But in Israel, everybody, except the Arab citizens of Israel, by the way, are required to join the military. So if you want to talk about apartheid and you want to talk about how laws are applied differently, the only difference between Arabs and Jews within the state of Israel is that Arabs have no requirement to serve in the military.
Right.
So,
But a lot of them do.
and a lot of them do
volumes.
proudly.
Right.
volunteer
Zionists.
as proud Arab, Muslim, Zionist citizens of the state of Israel, who have the same rights as every other citizen, Jew included. But the important point was that these are Israeli children that are forced at the age of 18 to join the army. So they go from high school, imagine going from high school to a battlefield in Gaza. So what you said is so huge, which is that if Israel wanted to commit a genocide, if Israel wanted to just destroy Gaza, how big is Gaza? 20 square miles, something like that, 25 square miles?
20 square miles.
Whatever,
Yes.
right, you know, a few million people that live there, like you said, they could carpet bomb the area and within a week it would be over. But so
I don't even
far,
think a week, to be honest with you.
so far we've lost 800 and change troops.
Right.
So we lost 1,200 on October 7th and already another 800 to try to eliminate this threat that says, you know, we're coming after you again. So why would Israel risk its own children in order to fight this war in a conventional way when they simply could just blow it up?
Right. Well, people would say, oh, well, 800 compared to that. That's not the comparison we're talking about. What we're talking about, stick to what we're talking about right now. It makes no sense.
Right.
By that rationale, if we're trying to commit a genocide, if Israel's trying to commit a genocide, there are 8 unnecessary deaths. Like, there's not necessary. The only purpose for those soldiers being in there is trying to minimize civilian casualties.
That's it.
It's that simple. At risk of the soldier, at risk of Israel's children.
That's right.
And let's go to the next thing. The next thing, I'm going to hold it up for a minute. I don't know if the guys can zoom in quick enough. I didn't really prepare them for this. But it's literally, you probably could just see it from where I am. You don't even have to zoom in. It looks like the Israeli flag, and it's got a Hasidic-looking guy, and he's got his hands up like this, and it says, if I don't steal it, someone else will. Some anti-Semitic trope. That's what the comment is from Alvaro. Thank you, Alvaro. Appreciate your contribution to the conversation.
Right.
But what it does show is exactly why an Alvaro is so invested in the Israel-Palestinian thing. It's interesting, Alvaro Zissimos, all right? Why you're so vested in this, I wonder, is it you really a freedom fighter and you're fighting for the cause, or you just hate Jews? It seems to me with this post you hate Jews, and you couldn't be more clear, right? Next thing is from a guy, Ryan. Same shit.
Look at that last name. Look at that
different
last
name.
name, by the way. That seems to be a play on words.
Yeah, what is it?
Rommel.
Rommel? Oh, Rommel. Yeah, another Nazi legend,
Yeah,
right?
Rommel, yep.
Same shit, different name, and it has the Israeli flag and then a Nazi insignia.
Right.
Okay, Ryan. So that's the most insulting thing in the world, right? Like, again, talking about misappropriation, right?
Yep.
Genocide.
Projection.
Nazis.
Right.
It's just
Everything done to the Jews
killing
is now used as an accusation against
these people on video walked into people's homes and butchered babies. People say, oh, the baby cut off baby heads was a myth. There were babies that were cooked in front of their families.
Yep.
There were babies that were stabbed shot point blank in their. There are 2 babies that were beaten to death and strangled and then mauled with rocks. The Bebus kids. Those are baby killers, okay? If you want to talk baby killers, those are baby killers, okay? Is it terrible collateral damage in war? Of course. Who wants to see that? Nobody wants to see that. Nobody wants to see that. But come up with a better solution, because they're literally they're trying to send strike forces. They try to do all these things in an impossible situation. And everybody wants it to end, believe me. Let's go on. Richard Alaman. Let's see, you mean the Holocaust, this is what he says. You mean the Holocaust being perpetrated on the natives of Palestine?
I wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, please, the natives of Palestine.
That's the point, the natives of Palestine. Well,
Right.
I got news for you. The Jews
But
are...
again, Holocaust, he uses a catchphrase. Let's insult some more.
I have news for you. The Jews are natives to Palestine.
Been the most native people in the Palestine Mandate. And on one of our next segments, we're going to literally pull up maps for you, showing you, unbiased maps, the history of the peoples that live there, the growth, the decline. It'll show you what Lloyd and I talked about, how the conquest, the expulsion of Jews, the Jews coming back.
Yep, we're gonna establish how the Jews have had a constant presence and over the last 3,000 years, and for most of that time had sovereignty over Palestine, and that not an acre of land was stolen by anybody.
Right.
And we're going to show that to you at the next segment.
I'm sorry to say that's misappropriation. One guy commented, "Why did you call it the Palestinian question?" Fair comment, right? Because I think that it's to just claim the Palestinian thing was something that Arafat put together, right? He just came out there and say, "We're Palestinians now," which is another misappropriation because Palestinians are Jews, Christians. Before this was called the Arab-Israeli conflict, right? Now the Arabs have become Palestinians and that's it. We're Palestinians, nobody else is from here, because it fits that narrative, which is just a false narrative.
Yep.
The history is there. The history is there. Literally, the Declaration of Independence of Israel was literally to make a home for Arabs, Christians, and Jews, right? Muslims, Christians, and Jews.
That's right.
Here's the next statement from Brandon. Brandon Williams, who's very vested in this Israel-Palestine situation too, Brandon. Free Palestine. Okay. Thank you, Brandon. But somebody pushes back here. Vera Havor with a good pushback. Brandon, Palestine was ever a free independent entity, never a free independent entity. It was a colonial creation and ruled by colonial powers. Fact.
Fact.
So the only thing that they should be freed from is the terror group Hamas that's destroying all normal living for all in the region. Also fact. How about combat the facts?
Her comment, Vera Javor, her comment is right on point, and that's exactly right. So we know that the Ottomans ruled this entire region for 400 years. There was no independent nation states, right, before 1944, 45, 46, 48. There was no Lebanon, there was no Syria, there was no Saudi Arabia, and there was no Israel. This was a region that was inhabited by all kinds of different people. And then when the British defeated the Ottoman Empire, and then the British took control, and the British and the French together carved up the region. They were the colonial powers that were occupying the land, not the Jews. The Jews already lived there. So what happened was, again, the French and the British were the ones that carved up that land and then controlled it for 20 years until the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948. And by the way, they didn't just try to establish a nation-state of Israel. They also attempted to give sovereignty to the Palestinians. So people don't remember that, and they don't talk about it, that yes, the Palestinians were also offered a state. The difference, though, is that the Jews agreed to share the land and agreed to partition it and stay on their side, and the Arabs said, no, we want all of it.
Right.
And that's a fact.
Right. Here's Brommel again commenting. What question, I guess in response to the Palestinian question, how bloodthirsty you land-thieving genocidal dogs are? Free Palestine. Thank you for your contribution. And then again, I guess the guy John Bloider pushed back on him, and he responded to him, John Bloider, you'll burn in hell for being a Zionist piece of shit fucking dog. Intellect.
So I have a question there. Like, for example, like when Ryan Brommel says thieving genocidal dogs, we've already covered genocide, and we've debunked that, and it's completely ridiculous. And again,
But
it's
the
just
dogs part's pretty
well,
telling, right?
that's just that's just
Anti-Semitism.
it's anti-Semitism, and it's a intellectual and emotional immaturity.
Right.
So I don't pay much attention to the name calling, but what gets me is the terms that are appropriated. So thieving,
Right.
and again, this is the part where we don't push back well enough and say, well, wait a second, what do you mean?
Right.
Thieving. What are you saying? You're saying that Israel, the Jews stole the land? Based on what? What is your source for making that assertion? And you will see how quickly it'll just evolve into insults, and then the conversation will be over.
Right.
Because when you push them back on actual facts, on historical fact, I'm not just talking about what people say. This is all documented. Okay, again, this isn't 3,000 years ago. This is, 1948. These documents are all there. So, ask them, what do you mean? What land was stolen? They'll just say, oh, they stole the land. But they can't give you any factual support, to back up that assertion.
Right, and so you burn. I read the dog thing, and then the guy John responds, "You'll get an A for studying Mein Kampf so well." That's a good response.
Which, by the way, I'm sorry to keep interrupting,
Oh,
but everything brings a
what it's
point.
meant for,
Mein
interrupt.
Kampf is less anti-Semitic than the Quran.
Yeah,
Did you know that?
I mean, I believe it.
Yes.
I believe it, and the stuff that's coming out of these Arab clerics and Arab leaders. I posted something. We'll get to that in a little bit, but I posted something yesterday where one of our religious leaders posted this beautiful thing in Testament to Jerusalem about the Christians and the Muslims wanting peace. Contrast that with what the Muslim clerics are saying to their people. They're saying it out loud. You can find it. So you want to
Destroy the Jews. Our goal is to kill
They're
every
gonna
Jew.
burn the Zionist pigs.
Which I find interesting because the argument is, well, if you're only trying to root out Hamas, then why kill civilians, right? That's the argument.
Right.
And of course, you know, we have a logical explanation, which is they hide behind their people and they have their missile firing systems in schools and mosques and hospitals. Then when it comes to the other side, so for example, they don't want the Israelis to hold the Palestinians collectively responsible for the actions of Hamas, right?
Right.
Fair, correct?
Right.
Logical?
Right.
Okay. Well, then if you're angry at the Israeli government for committing what you believe to be a genocide, why then are you attacking Jews all over the world? So, in other words, the argument is, well, we shouldn't hold the Palestinians collectively guilty for the actions of Hamas, but it's okay to hold all Jews all over the world collectively guilty for the actions of the Israeli government, right? So, in other words, there's no way for us to win at anything because no matter what we do or say, it's inverted, right? So, you know, that's the problem.
You want to debate with people and like.
And hey, listen, and you and I have publicly, you know, invited whoever wants to come on and have a discussion, you know, a calm, respectful, intellectual discussion about facts. And so far, we've had no takers.
Right. We don't want anyone calling each other dogs.
But we haven't even had that one. We haven't even had the, you know, like I said, the intellectual, honest, emotionally mature, you know, Palestinian supporter to come in here and have a respectful conversation. Not one taker.
Right. And then this guy goes on. Where Zionism isn't working anymore. Holocaust is an excuse to commit genocide. Again, using language like that. He's using more language. And then he says Netanyahu is a wanted war criminal, and we're talking about this criminal court, this international criminal court, and these UN resolutions coming out now. We're going to talk about that in the next segment because we're going to break down that a little bit. We'll start to do that in a little bit right now, actually. But then he has an image of the 75 years of Palestinian land theft.
Oh, I know this slide. This slide has been going around for a long time, and it's all completely made up.
Right, completely made up. Yep. And then let's talk about the fact that these are all after attacks and attacks and attacks and attacks by every Arab nation, right? And I'm not even sure that this isn't even real, what they're showing. The
map's not real.
It's not even real, right? So it's fake. Again, using fake stuff, right? That's your argument to use fake stuff, all right? And then let's talk about, I want to get to a part where the person brings up one of these people. Again, it's, you know, genocide, cocksucker. That's another one I get over here. It's very nice. Here, all the Christian Jews, 14,000. Here, the UN. Let's see, I often hear it was Balfour UN resolution was what gave legitimacy. Has asked Mr. Goldberg if Israel's defied with all the resolutions from the UN since then, and the UN resolutions that have come out since. The UN. Yes. I think, but listen.
The answer is yes.
Here's the funny thing: 90% of the UN's resolutions have been against Israel, right?
He's talking about Resolution 181
yeah,
first.
Talk about Resolution
which establishes the partition, which is Resolution 181 was when the United Nations, the League of Nations, the precursor, got together and said, okay, and they had a vote, and all of the nation states voted the majority in favor of the establishment of the state of Israel and Palestine. Okay. So, you know, for them to say, you know, has Israel complied with all of the dictates of the Resolution 181? The answer is yes. Because if you read, do you have it there? Do you have Resolution 181?
No, I don't have it in front of me.
Because what does it say? It says that Israel will do everything in its power to foster the growth of the state of Israel and to respect all of the people that already live there, no matter who they are. Right. And absolutely, Israel has maintained its loyalty to Resolution 181. As a matter of fact, earlier in the comments, that same guy made a comment about Israel being a settler, colonialism, apartheid ethno-state, which completely cracks me up because the only settler colonial apartheid ethno-state is that of the Arabs that came out of
Right.
the Arabian Peninsula,
Right.
and then spread all through the Middle East and North Africa and conquered it all through theft, homicide, and rape. And even now, it
still
cracks
doing
me up.
that.
There's not only are they still doing that, but let's talk apartheid. I mean, have you ever seen a devout Muslim woman in a Muslim country? She's wearing a complete burqa from head to toe,
Right.
because she's not to be seen. So, I mean, right there are modern day examples of apartheid, where the laws apply differently to men in Muslim countries than they do to women. In Israel, guess what? There's no such thing. Every single person, no matter who they are, what race, religion, creed, color, has the same equal rights in Israel, right? You don't get killed in Israel for leaving the religion. If your sister gets raped, the rapist is held accountable, not your sister.
Right.
All right? These are the things that Muslims who are citizens of Israel will tell you, we're not leaving Israel where we live and have lived and accepted the establishment of the state of Israel and didn't leave then and are still here, and so are our families, and the land and property that we owned at the time we still own now. We're not leaving. Ask them, are any of them leaving Israel to go live in Jordan or to go live in Libya or Morocco or Algeria or anywhere in the Middle East, Iraq?
Yeah, no one would ever do it.
No.
Literally, it's not comparable.
Because it's not true. It's not an ethnocentric apartheid state. It just isn't.
Right. Right. I mean, speaking of that, I mean, let's talk about the ICJ criminal court.
Okay.
Right? They came out, which is the last few minutes of this segment. So they came out and they, first of all, there's still no finding, right? Has there even been a finding on it?
Yes, there was. Okay.
The finding was like,
That there wasn't genocide,
Right.
but that there could be a danger of possible genocide over time. That's what the extremely anti-Semitic
possible genocide.
and this is what
Matter.
and this is the extremely anti-Semitic International Criminal Court who hates Israel, who brought war crime allegations against Netanyahu, and even they had to go, it's not really genocide, but there's a possibility it could happen. That was their ruling. That is the ruling of the International Criminal Court. So when everybody says, well, the International Criminal Court and the UN found that Israel's committing genocide, again, they are lying.
Right. And they're
And you can look that up. You don't have to, and none of this has to come from me. It's all documented.
right. And then when people are talking about the new resolutions that are coming out, the United Nations is not the United Nations from 1945.
That's right.
And I'm just looking at the stats. I just looked up a quick search. The United Nations, the original United Nations, the member states, okay? I just had it. There were 50, in 1945, there were 51 member states, okay? None of them were Muslim majority, all right? Now there is 193 member states, 45 are Muslim majority. And we talked about the anti-Semitism in the Muslim world, okay? So we can't just ignore the influence that is happening now. And that's why you'll routinely see on these resolutions people voting for something and then a couple of the same countries always walking out or voting no. And it's usually the bigger countries, the liberal countries, the Western countries that are objecting and fighting back. So to make the statement, well, the UN, and refer to it as if it's some unbiased institution, the League of Nations, what it was meant to be, it's not. Right. It's a joke. Right. And that's why literally Trump and all these people put their strongest hawks in there to go there and scream and fight, because the hypocrisy is insane. The UN human rights, the women's rights,
Who's in charge of the Human Rights Council at the UN?
Iran.
China, Iran.
Like,
the most repressive regimes are actually at the head of the Human Rights Division of the United Nations.
I mean, it's just literally.
People don't know that either. They cite the UN, they have this idea in their mind that it's a legitimate, objective agency who, by the way, his original mandate was to make sure something like the Holocaust never happened again.
Right.
Yet when Israel is constantly attacked by Hezbollah from Lebanon in the north, day after day for years and years and years, and when Hamas commits all kinds of war crimes on October 7th and thereafter, not a peep from the UN. Right? Only Israel is.
Yeah, where's the UN with the missiles? If the UN wants to get involved, you don't want Israel doing stuff, come in there and stop the missiles. Send UN forces. They're major powers. There's some major powers. There's firepower. UN can send forces into Gaza, into Lebanon, clear out Hezbollah, clear out Hamas. But you know why they don't do it? Because they know that a lot of the population support these people. This is their unofficial government. As elected in these Muslim countries, these elections are bullshit. And everybody knows it. They don't get free will. They don't get free anything. Ask the Persian people how happy they are. Nobody talks to the Persian people. You know, you hear about the Persian people are over here complaining about the oppressive government. Most of them are pro-Israel.
Right. Well, now you're assuming that people understand who the Persians are.
Well, Iranians, okay? I mean, that's the thing, is that people like, Brandon and these guys that are making these comments here, honestly, like, get qualified to come and debate. Learn the history. Would you walk in and would you want to analyze a basketball game if you didn't know the first thing about basketball and you're just repeating things that your buddies are telling you? And it's such intellectual dishonesty, and it's just a scary thing to see. And we're going to talk in the next segment of what this has led to and where we are now. But that's my thoughts. Keep commenting. We'll keep talking. And if any of you want to come and have an honest discussion, and literally, if you're just going to throw the term genocide out and you're going to do some alteration of that's the definition. That doesn't make sense. Combat what I'm saying to you. Why would Israel be sending their troops in there? Why wouldn't Israel clear it out? You hear on these shows, these debates, people make these points, but it gets run over by the other side. Yep. And they do the whataboutism, or they switch to here. Or
well, it always comes, the fallback position is, well, they shouldn't be there. They stole the land. And that's where, that's a difficult topic to discuss, because I think most people don't understand the history of immigration to Palestine, right? So people, again, they think that, the Jews just got on 747s in 1948 and just flew in Israel and took over, and that's not what happened. It was, again, it was land that it was basically backwater territory, and over years and years and years, Jews were emigrating to Palestine. And as Jews began emigrating to Palestine, Arabs started to emigrate to Palestine from the region east of Transjordan, right? Because the Jews started cultivating the land and making it fruitful and building, and the Arabs came in and they were part of it. They were working to help the Jews build. They were benefiting from higher economic status as the result. But as time went on and more Jews came, the Arabs started to push back. And then you had the beginning of the Palestinian nationalist movement, which was started by, what's his name? Hussein, Hussein.
Right.
What's his name?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, it does matter. I'll get it.
Yeah.
He's the main Palestinian faction, the leader who invented this whole national, Palestinian nationalism. But it really does. It comes down to immigration and racism, and that is that the Jews are coming and we don't want them here, so we're going to now start attacking them to make sure they don't keep coming. And it is that basic. Are we almost done? Because
we got a couple minutes on this.
I wanted to bring this up because on our very first podcast, Danny, and I'm just sort of changing the subject just a second because it's important, but it comes from this immigration idea, and that is, on our first podcast, I brought up an analogy about Miami and how when the Cubans came to Miami, and what it was like, and how nobody attacked them, and then I started to ask myself again, like, what are the actual facts about what happened in Miami? Because I grew up there, right. And and when I was a child, it wasn't Cuban, but as an adult, it's all Cuban. So like, what a great analogy, right? So I started looking at it, and here's what I have. And this is no great thing. This is just Wikipedia.
Right.
Okay, listen to this. In 1960, the Hispanic population in Miami was 50,000. In 1980, when the Marielitos came over from Cuba, right? The Hispanic population grew to 580,000. Okay, right. So in 20 years, the Hispanic population in Miami grew from 50 to 580,000 people. okay? Very similar to the way the Jewish population grew in Palestine beginning in 1914, right? Culminating in 1948. Cubans were the main source of this Hispanic growth in the city, as many Cubans came to Miami at the time due to Cuba's poor economy and a high poverty rate, as well as the dictatorship of Fidel Castro at the time. How is that different? Did we...
Well, I'll tell you how it's different. This is not their native land either, which is, I love the Hispanic community. We love you. You add a great addition to the country. We're all happy you're here.
Yep.
But the Jews are going back to their native country. That's the difference. It's even more argument, right?
Did we try to evict the Cubans? Did we try to attack them, kill them, marginalize them, delegitimize them? And have we been doing that ever since 1980, 40 years ago?
Right.
The answer is no.
No, because it's not about land, and we know that.
It's about anti-Semitism. It's about they're Jews and we don't want them.
And it's in display here with maps and pictures and comments, and we'll stop. We're going to end the segment here, but I'm going to have Lloyd back. We're going to pick some other stuff back up in the next segment, but thank you, Lloyd, for coming on with me again today. Thank you to all our viewers. Thanks for listening. We hope we could have informed you, or you enjoyed what you watched today. Please like and subscribe to the channel. I'm being told I need to tell you that every time. We're on YouTube Music, YouTube. We're on iHeartRadio, Spotify. We're everywhere. Also, I'm being told that we now have a link for merchandise. If you guys want to get your swag, Two Taps and Friends, you're welcome to. But thank you all for listening. Can't wait to talk to you guys again. Love you all. Goodbye. Cut.